Garmlavar, yes. What do you think about WoW just killing off old lore characters like Rastakhan, who was mentioned in the game since vanilla? You know, yeah, like a bit more Rastakhan would have been fine. I guess with Rastakhan, it's that sort of thing where we all saw his death coming, and it was like a lore figure. I didn't really mind. I didn't mind him dying, personally, because I didn't feel that connected to him. But that said, I wasn't a troll player, so he wasn't this kind of like big venerated character, you know, in like my story going through WoW. You know, I think like you have to be willing to kill off characters, though. You definitely have to be willing to do that because it's just, it is a part of a story. You have to have stakes. You have to have consequences. So, you know, I think it is the right move to make. I mean, with Rastakhan specifically, I was fine with him going. They maybe could have got a bit more out of him before he went. But no, I was fine with that. I think there's maybe a few more characters need to go. I kind of like how Garrosh is dead. Like, he's gone. There's no more Garrosh anymore. I think that was definitely a good move for them to make. Just because his arc was done, it was finished, right? It's one of those things I think a lot of people wanted Sylvanas to die, and I always knew she wouldn't, right? Like, you know, I'm not... There's been some people who have thought that a lot of the criticism over that cinematic is that it's predictable. No. To me, that's a straw man anyway, if it was projected onto my opinion. It's because I just didn't think it was a particularly good story that was being told, even though it is logically consistent and all that stuff. But I think there's a world where Sylvanas dies, and that's the right place to take her character, where maybe she can earn a good ending to her character. Trying to think. Like, Varian, you know, I thought the death of Varian was really well handled. Because, in a way, you didn't super expect it. I mean, you could have maybe intuited it from what they showed off at BlizzCon, but it was just the type of death that happens when a king goes to battle. And the whole thing is he conducted himself exactly the way that he would. So it was like a really good way to send off that character. So, you know, generally I'm fine with it. It's just, as long as they, you know, as long as it doesn't feel like the worst bits of like Game of Thrones, the TV show, not the books, the TV show, then it should be fine. I mean, you do sometimes have to clear out the old to make way for the new. And there's a bit of me that thinks like if they were to more focus on a more new cast of characters, it could be good. Like there's characters like Tilia, who like I really liked, Flynn Fairwind, who I liked. You know, there's those characters. You know, it's like I like him. I'd actually like to spend more time with him. Like Tilia's in the Shadowlands, but she hasn't done anything. But I think she's a character who, you know, if you gave her more screen time, maybe that would mean just leaving some other characters behind or them being killed off, whatever. But if you gave her more screen time, I mean, in a few years, we could think of her in the same tier that we think of Jaina, or like nearly the same tier, right? Because, you know, she get that time put into her. So it's an interesting thing. It's like a case-by-case basis, and it depends on the story. I think we'll just have to see, regarding a bunch of the current characters. Yeah, so it's tricky. Killing characters off is always so hard to do in media.
I think the important thing there is just keeping in mind why they're dying. It's like, are they dying for a good reason? Are they dying for a plot contrivance? Are they dying for an emotional reaction? That's the kind of stuff where I largely agree on Varian, where it kind of hit all three at the same time, where it was a good death. It conveyed in the plot that, you know, one of the great leaders is gone.
Yeah.
One of the great leaders is gone. It was a losing battle. We were overwhelmed. We needed to gather new allies to fight back in order to push the Legion back and fight them. And also, it had the old emotional reaction too, because it was an awfully sad thing combined with, you know, how much we cared about the character, how much like that character meant to other characters who are still alive, and then their emotional reaction was like, you know, amplified our own. So I think that was like the example of a good one. The example of a bad one, by comparison, is Tyrion, where Tyrion's death, it served no purpose.
He fell into the bubble bath.
He fell into the green and was killed, and it kind of fits some of the same points of variance, where it was to show how powerful they were. It was to remove a major character from play. It was, you know, supposed to be vaguely emotional, but they didn't give it any of the dues whatsoever. It was like they didn't pay it his dues. It was literally just, guess he's dead now. And some of that I think might have been for the plot contrivance in order to make the paladins feel something. In order
to make you the High Lord.
In order to have in order to make you the High Lord, and in order to have the DKs have that whole arc of fighting the paladins to try to bring him back as a Death Knight. So I feel like that's basically two perfect examples of where the balance of like the emotional reaction, plot contrivance, and actual circumstance of death were like out of balance, and it felt terrible.
You know, there's a world where you could bring Tyrion back as a Death Knight, and it could be interesting in a light-related expansion given Shadowlands-related stuff, but I don't want to go into that can of worms.
No, please no.
I'd only say that because I don't feel like he had a great death. You know, as far as media deaths go, he was like an incredibly legendary character. He just kind of fell into the bubble bath and went like, oh man.